appears you got here just in the nick of time. What does that make us?
Big damn heroes, sir.
Ain't we just?
Since my first video on chemtrails was so warmly received, I decided to expand a bit and present 4 reasons why the chemtrails conspiracy theory is absolute bullshit. The number 1 reason: healthy pilots, flight attendants, and ground crew. While it's widely believed that those of us who work in aviation are underworked and overpaid, the fact is that we spend hundreds of hours a year at high altitudes where these chemicals are supposed to be being deployed. If chemtrails existed, we would be breathing these poisons at much higher concentrations than people on the ground. In fact, because the pressurization systems concentrate the ambient air outside the aircraft, the concentration should be hundreds, if not millions of times higher than it would be on the ground. Therefore, after years of exposure, you would expect the effects to reflect on the health statistics of aviation professionals. However, we find the opposite is true. In addition to our natural good looks and humility, pilots tend to be significantly healthier than the general population. Drug and alcohol abuse is virtually unknown, few pilots smoke compared to the general population, and because we're required to get physical exams every 6 months, the health problems that do come up are caught earlier, leading to more successful treatments. In addition, pilots tend to have an active lifestyle outside of aviation. As aviation professionals age, we're no more likely than the general population to develop cancer, despite the fact that our higher altitude work environments lead us to more radiation exposure, and the fact that we work around complex machines with numerous hazardous materials such as oil, fuel, de-icing chemicals, and so on. So, chemtrails cannot be real for the simple fact that the people who would have the highest exposures show the least effects. Reason number 2. No space in the aircraft to hide the chemicals. This is a cutaway drawing of an L-1011, a remarkable airplane in every respect. As you can see, every square inch of the inside is accounted for. There are no chemical tanks hidden inside and no place to put them even if somebody wanted to. Same in this newer Airbus. There's no room inside. The space is either used for passengers and cargo or for fuel. Oh, the fuel. Perhaps it's mixed in there? I'm afraid not. First of all, metals are being cited as a major component of the chemtrails. Metals and petroleum don't really mix very well. But assuming you solve that problem, you'd have to get around the burning process. The combustion would liberate the metals from the fuel, and as a result, the inside of the engine would become hopelessly coated with an increasing concentration of metals. The same would be true of non-metallic contaminants in the fuel. The toxins would build up in the engine, and therefore those who work on them and around them would be exposed to high concentrations and become sick. Yet, there is no evidence that the mechanics or other ground personnel become sicker at any higher rate than the general population, so that argument fails. That leaves the possibility of a dedicated aircraft, of course, but as we'll see in a second, that fails as well for the following reason. Reason number 3. Airplanes can't hide. This picture represents 24 hours of air traffic in the United States. It's a fact that every single aircraft operating above 18,000 feet in the United States and lower in other parts of the world are required to be on a flight plan and under the direct control of air traffic control. There are 5,500 daily flights in the New York area alone, 2 million in a year. The recent debacle with the Northwest Airlines pilots using their computers illustrates what can happen when an aircraft loses contact with air traffic control. Anyone can go to websites such as FlightAware or Flight Tracker and enter a bit of information and actually see the aircraft's actual location, but also a history of its activity for the past few weeks or even months. If you care to audit all these flights, you can trace every single aircraft capable of operating at high altitudes. Except for military, right? Well, when operating outside of special military zones, the military aircraft are required to be under the control of civilian controllers. While it's true that military flight plan information is not generally available and quite often classified, this doesn't mean that they're out spraying chemicals, as we shall see. The suggestion that they are is simply ridiculous. Reason number 4. Not enough military aircraft. The U.S. Air Force has around 5,500 aircraft on active status. Of these, 2,100 or so are single-seat fighter-type aircraft, which can be immediately dismissed because of their small size and distinctive shapes. Another 172 are strategic bombers, whose design would immediately give them away as well. So out of the remaining aircraft, 568 are variations of the C-130 Hercules, which cannot operate at altitudes high enough to be consistent with the myth. Then there are 185 to 205 C-17s and 111 C-5 Galaxies, their bigger cousins. These heavy lift aircraft are immediately recognizable by their high wing design. This still leaves a large number of airline-style aircraft, the bulk of which are variations of the Boeing 707. These are four-engine airliners to be sure, but they sport distinctive paint schemes and external equipment such as the tail booms on the KC-135 in the picture, or radomes such as the E-3A Sentry AWACS aircraft, also in the photograph. The majority of these airplanes are in some stage of deployment in support of the war effort anyway and unavailable for domestic operations. There are 85 KC-10 tankers, the military version of the DC-10, which again are given away by their distinctive tail boom. There are a few 757s and 737s, but these are VIP transports whose paint scheme gives them away as well. And then of course there are the two 747s that belong to the big guy in the White House. This still leaves another 1,500 aircraft. However, these are small training aircraft, small low-altitude cargo transports, and unmanned drones, that all of which can be ruled out as being inconsistent with the myth. So, after ruling out the too obvious and too small, there are around 24 aircraft that one could say might potentially be involved in some sort of nefarious activity, compared to the 3,000 or so aircraft being operated by just the 5 biggest airlines on a daily basis in this country. This number is simply too small to be consistent with the supposed photographic evidence, and no other branch of the service has any significant numbers of aircraft to contribute either. This leaves the military doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing, defending our country, not destroying it.
If I'm your mission, Shepard, best give it up. You're welcome on my boat. God ain't.